My name is Edra Soto, and I am a visual artist. When I think about my practice, I think about my relationships. I think about my personal relationships, my geographical relationships, and my relationship with communities that I have been a part of certain periods of time. There's two bodies of work that I have dedicated several years to develop. One of them is titled graft, and graft to me is a type of imaginary transplant. Think of it as a reflection on migration and the introduction of physical presence represented through architecture. So the project consists in the creation of architectural interventions in existing places in the United States. To create the interventions, I first have to assess the space where the intervention is going to be happening, and I think of it as a type of architectural installation or site-specific installation. Then I make a representation of either a raw iron fence, which is a reja, it's called reja in Spanish, or a decorative concrete block, which is a quiebrasol in Spanish, and that is the source that comes from Puerto Rico. I source these particular patterns from Puerto Rico and make representations of them. I chose to make these patterns because these patterns live in the common houses or the lower middle class houses of Puerto Rico. I became very curious about who were the designers of these particular patterns in the lower and middle class homes of Puerto Rico. And I was thinking of them in relationship to colonial architecture and why we don't study these patterns in elementary and high school. These are very familiar patterns to the visual culture of Puerto Rico, and everybody knows about them, but there's no populous knowledge about the origins of the patterns. So through research, I was able to find information about speculations of the origins of the patterns that I make available to literary components that I integrate to some of the iterations of graft. Another particular body of work that has been taking me some years to develop is titled Open 24 Hours. And the title refers to the side streets and alleys and the boulevard that is usually filled with garbage and is visible to everybody. I start thinking about the detritus in relationship to the neighborhood, and I start thinking about more deeply about the lack of things in the neighborhood and what causes for the liquor store that is located in the middle to the boulevard to be the focal point of the neighbors. So the lack of pharmacies, of restaurants, the lack of supermarkets close to the neighborhood, that perhaps could be a reason. I also team up with a scholar. Her name is Naoyo Kwate, who writes about the effects of racism and advertising in lower income neighborhoods. And she will be she already have been a contributor to my project, but she will be a contributor to the exhibition I will be creating for Cleve Carney in the next year. The main difference between the project Open 24 Hours and Graph will be that graft arrives as a representation of the architectural elements and their cultural value, while Open 24 Hours operates as an archive where the objects can have equal value, but the objects in itself, they're garbage, and it takes for me to reintroduce them to society to allow for their study and the consideration of their cultural value. Soon after the blackout and the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I felt compelled to get involved in the fight against racism and social justice. And understanding that Floyd and Taylor are just two of hundreds of black individuals that were unarmed and killed by the police, I'm viewing these names of these individuals at protests and in social media. It really made me want to learn more about the victims. So for this purpose, I created an engagement project that I post in my Facebook and my Instagram that I titled Let Love Win. And the title is after what I hope and desire for these times. And the project consists on the documentation of portraits of the victims of police brutality, the protests, the banners and murals that have emerged regarding the social justice movement. Currently, my work title, Screen House, is on view at the Millennium Park, and it will be on exhibition till the next year. I am also a part of a group exhibition titled Temporal Puerto Rican Resistance that is currently on view at the Museum of Contemporary Photography here in Chicago.